Alright, so here's the second attempt. The first time I did this, I wasn't using the Roto Brush correctly. What I'm going to do this time is on the first frame, I'm going to focus my energy on trying to use the Roto Brush to do as much of the work as possible on the first frame. This is important because After Effects is going to propagate that information every frame afterwards. So I'll double click on it. It opens it up in a second window. Then I'll zoom in and I'm going to start working with the Roto Brush. There's no need to worry about doing a perfect job here at the beginning. You just grab a big brush, drag it over what it is that you're trying to mask out, and then see how good a job it does detecting the edges. And that's not bad. So now all I have to do is just adjust with the Roto Brush to add in parts that it didn't quite catch, and then I can hold down Alt as a way to subtract away parts that aren't supposed to be there either. So you just hold down Alt, you'll see your brush switch color to subtract, and then just drag out an area where you think it should hopefully detect, where it shouldn't be selecting, and then away you go. So for the rest of the outline here, I'm just using the Roto Brush, and all I'm doing is just trying to add and subtract areas just to see if I can get an improvement on the initial pass that the Roto Brush gave me. Once I'm finished with doing as much as I can with the dinosaur, then I'll switch over to the car and try to quickly outline again as much as I can and see where the Roto Brush can give me a pretty decent edge for the mat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch approaches. Instead of using the Roto Brush, I'm going to use the Refine Edge brush, which is the same tool as the Roto Brush, just have to switch the option. Now the great thing about this tool is, you don't have to paint a very precise line. All you want to do is just focus in on an area and then paint along the edge and see if you can do a better job detecting the edge details. So we click and drag across the edge, and there you can see it's done a pretty good job detecting the edge. The difficulty is going to be the contrast with the teeth here, which have picked up a lot of green from the green screen. But at least it's getting the edge. So with that, I can hopefully work with that later on by manually refining the mat or even using the pen tool. So the next step then is to just continue this process and go around the edge entirely to see how much the Refine Edge brush can do on this first frame to make sure that everything is working properly. So of course, now I'm left with, where do I go from here? What are some of the options that I can use to begin refining the edges of the mat to try and improve the selection of what I want from what I don't want, the separation from the background. So the simplest thing, of course, is to have a look at the alpha and then have a look at the mat. And one thing you could try to do is play around with adjusting that edge. Of course, the one difficulty with using some of the Shift Edge options in the Roto Brush and the Refine Edge tool is that it's very, very difficult to have one setting that pleases the entire alpha. One setting that's going to do a great job in areas of detail, but also not give you fringes and outlines. So this is where it's a bit limited. Another technique you can try is to add an adjustment layer and then connect that adjustment layer to the alpha mat of your footage. Then you can apply curves, and you can see using a curves adjustment, I'm able to adjust the edges of the mat, and you can see how I can sometimes add a little bit of white to areas that are a little bit transparent. But again, the difficulty is with controlling the effect. It's really easy to kind of drag these sliders around and then improve one area at the expense of another. You can even key these effects frame by frame if you wish, but of course, what I'm really struggling with is getting that level of control. So now what I wanted to explore is using the brush tool to just simply paint on the mat frame by frame. A very analog but straightforward method. So some settings that I've learned that are incredibly important is when you start working with the brush is to check the options. Make sure that the brush is set to paint the alpha and not the image, and make sure that it is going to be held for a single frame under duration. I didn't have that in the past, and that was frustrating me to no end because my brush strokes would be visible the entire timeline. So if you want your brush strokes only visible for that frame, make sure you set it to single frame. So now the difficult question is where to go from here. Certainly I can go and paint laboriously, frame by frame, around the complicated edges and try to get a good mat. Is this the best way to work? I don't know. I'd love to hear what people can suggest in the comments, but certainly it is one way to work. If anyone has any suggestions, please drop them in the comments, and I'll do a little more Googling and searching to see what kind of methods people use out there. Thanks for watching, and again, thanks for sharing. Take care.